I am diabetic, and after experimenting almost for 3-4 years with various things regarding diabetes, I would like to share my experience with regard to diabetes. I was diagnosed diabetes in 2003. At that time my fasting was 300, and after that I started very strong medication with the help of one of the best doctors of India. However, my diabetes only increased. I took all the food cares like so-called brown bread, oatmeal, whatnot. Then in 2010, my diabetes became worse, and finally I had to go on insulin, and my insulin continued for 3 years. Because of insulin, I had started feeling a lot of problems like mood swings, hypo, weight gain, and in 2013 my weight went to 86 kg, and I started feeling being aged, being tired, being totally dependent on medication. It was a very bad phase of my life. I started losing confidence in me. So then I started doing my own research. Of course, medication I used to take it from only qualified doctors. But then my research started. After doing the research, first thing I identified was to reduce the weight. So I tried to research, and then I found that if your weight, which is almost 25 kg more than your appropriate weight, if it is brought to almost 15 kg lesser than what I was at that time, I may feel its good consequences. So I went to a doctor, dietitian. I tried to Google, but I could not do. Then I went to a weight management program by an expert dietitian in Delhi. And because of his advice, I started almost 2-3 kg weight every month. So after losing almost 7-8 kgs, I started feeling the consequence of that. And then I went to a doctor. I said that my sugar remains very low and I feel hypo often. So what should I do? He said, leave the insulin. So after losing almost 7-8 kgs, I left from 86. I left insulin, and that was a regaining of the confidence in myself. And then I started only on the oral medication. I was still following the diet regime, and I was losing the weight. So when my weight almost reduced to the tune of almost 17-16 kg, I started feeling very comfortable with regard to my sugar, and in between my oral medicines were also reduced. So during the pandemic, I further started, before I move to other point, I would like to say, in between I started from 18 onwards, I started using CGM devices. There are so many CGM devices, continuous glucose monitoring devices, available in the market. I took one from Abbott, which is called Freestyle Libre Pro at that time. So I started using that device to know whether I can see how the dynamics of the sugar happens in my body. So it gives automatically, without pricking anything, your blood sugar position after particular food, and in the night, in the morning, in the evening, etc. This CGM helped me to understand what food actually impacts the sugar spike glucose spike and what sustains the glucose level. Because sustaining a threshold of 80 sugar level and not going to exceed it 150 was my target. So I wanted to remain within this target. So what happened after CGM devices, I was able to understand a lot of foods which used to maintain my glucose level and which used to spike. In between, during pandemic, when we all were scared, I further researched and found that what are the actually foods which spike our glucose, and can we avoid them and substitute them with better diabetic things. During this process, I came to identify, which I was not told by anybody, that actually the carbohydrate is the biggest culprit in our food with regard to diabetes. And sugar, of course. Sugar is directly glucose converter. So I started, I was avoiding sugar, but I could not understand this food dynamics. So I immediately started searching what are the carbohydrate controlled food. So, we are, for your common knowledge, you can Google it out. Chapati we take, brown bread we take, oatmeal we take, rice we take. They all have glycemic loads of around 80. Then I came to understand what is the glycemic load, what is the glycemic index. So I started monitoring my food on the basis of glycemic index. So in the glycemic index, carbohydrates were totally a no-no zone. So I started searching on internet. Lot of flour are available which have less glycemic index, maybe even less than 30, and you can get it on Amazon. You can try anyone. So carbohydrate. So the thumb rule I got that anything which is higher than the 30 glycemic load has to be avoided by a diabetic person. This was a very important tagline for my diabetes management. So I started avoiding the carbohydrate, which further improved my sugar position. And after that, I came to know that how to live in a low calorie diet. Because what happened, I reduced my carbohydrate, but I continued my fat intake, because fat doesn't impact your glucose. But after reading more and more, I found that fat, though may not spike your glucose, fat is equally damaging to us if we take it in a very high quantity, and if we want to use it properly, we should take reasonable amount of fat depending on our body and depending on our routine, depending on our exercise regime, etc. So the next dimension came when I started thinking that how to live on low calorie diet so that our body is trained to consume energy from the existing fat inside the body rather than waiting for the instant food to feed it up. What happens, we have cultured our body like that body waits for external carbohydrate or fat to consume, while internal fat it stores, and that is the main reason of weight gain. So you have to train your body to subside your artificial hunger so that your body starts deriving the energy from the stored energy rather than from the instant energy which we consume. Then, because instant energy we consume is a result of either our routine food behavior or hunger. And hunger is also artificial, because hunger, we have created hunger, a psychological hunger in us is disturbing us more than the biological hunger. So what I try to obtain in these days to subdue, to mute my artificial hunger and train my body to get energy from the stored fat. This took me, and a very important aspect of my diabetes management, because you have to do two things. What I have assumed and what I have experienced, that there is a lot of confusion with regard to how much calorie one should take. For example, my body and myself, I feel that if I take or restrict my food to the limit of around 1200 calories, that makes my body perfect as per the size and a 30 minutes walking regime and some weight exercises, which is just to keep my muscles toned and my overall metabolism okay because of walk, etc. So what happened, I started taking some multivitamins. Amazon, you can buy it. Centrum, I take 50 plus vitamin, and that supplements my microfoods. And then I started depending on because I would like to advise all people that we need protein very essentially, and protein is necessary for our cellular building blocks and for body wear and tear. So a critical threshold of protein should never be violated. So to fulfill that gap, I started turning towards some good carbohydrate free protein shakes. It is available. You can take from market best brand. So I started consuming the protein shake to make my body getting the protein supply seamlessly. And then I started taking micronutrients to make my body not feel deficit of micronutrients. And then I started reducing my carbohydrates, reducing. Even if I reduce my carbohydrates, you're still in dal, in sabji, some amount of carbohydrate we get. So zero carbohydrate is impossible. What I started avoiding the carbohydrate, I take chapati, but then I take the chapati, the flour which is less than 30 glycemic index. So still I am taking, but I almost reduce it. So another experiment, then I decided that how to live on the low calorie diet. It was a good struggle, mental and as well as physical. Initially when I started living on low calorie diet, means in the morning, just, small breakfast, maybe around 100 calories with protein shake included. And then vitamins. Then in the lunch, I used to feel hunger. So I started, cheating my body for using just zero Coke in the lunch time, because it immediately befools our body that we are happy, but it is not getting energy. So body started. And then in the afternoon, around 4-5 p.m., I used to take one boiled tomato with some onions and garlics, etc., and something a little bit fried, just to quench my hunger at around 5. And then in the night with dinner, 2 chapati, sabzi, and like that. So initially I used to feel a lot of hunger in the daytime, but later on my hunger subsided, and even I do not need now zero Coke in the lunch. So after breakfast, I am taking a lot of water, and then in the around 4-5 p.m. I take one tomato, and then maybe some boiled, some roasted chana, etc., and of course a few 4-5 pieces of cottage cheese, and then around 6-7, and then at 8:30 I take my dinner. And dinner is simply one bowl dal and 2 chapati and seasonal vegetables. This all. So another dimension I learned during this time was because of overfeeding of glucose and carbohydrate, our body's own mechanism of producing insulin got impacted. So what happens, I developed insulin resistance. So I do believe that most of type 2 diabetes people have mostly the problem of insulin resistance. So once they reduce the carbohydrate and sugar intake, their body automatically starts responding to insulin. But you have to reach to a critical threshold. Believe me, I am neither starving myself, I am neither overfeeding myself. I am just feeding what is optimally my body requires. And in this process, what I am observing is that my body is very much responding to my food intake. And I just experimented one day in the night, I take some gur. That day my morning sugar was lesser than normal. So it means the intake of carbohydrate, glucose or sugar immediately prompted my body to respond with insulin. So in conclusion, I would like to say type 2 diabetes, first of all, you reduce your calorie, not going with American standards, avoid all kind of foods which I have told you, fruits and all that. Go for multivitamins, go for seasonal vegetables and in reasonable quantity. Go with the low glycemic index atta, flour, whatever you call, and have some cheese taken for breakfast or whenever you feel hungry. Reduce your hunger and put a gap of food, because this ideology of bombarding your body after every 2 hours something is something which I don't subscribe. And I am able to manage my HB1C at 5.4. This is the highest achievement in terms of H1BC. My H1BC last month came 5.40, which is ideal. Let me tell you, it is less than normal people. And I could, you can see my face. My weight is almost little bit higher. I mean, maybe 72 around. But I am feeling energetic. And I would like to advise all you people that diabetes, your internal body gets upset because of the too much carbohydrate and sugar in your food. Direct sugars and indirect sugars. These brown breads, oatmeal, all are sugary foods actually. You see their glycemic index, then you decide. So once you come to the conclusion that I will not consume anything which has higher than 30 glycemic index, and every food you buy from market or Google it out, you can get it easily. And you can take some nuts, some almonds, you can take some flaxseed oil capsules. Sometimes you take UD because your normal liver process when it goes fatty, so it has some relevance with regard to diabetes. And then keep your sleep at least 8 hours, 7 hours. If you sleep 7-8 hours, your body gets the best support system to repair it. So exercising, minimum I walk 5,000 steps. I do some weight exercises, 5 kg, 100 times in a slot of 20, 5 times. I take 2-3 liters of water. Then I take seasonal vegetables. I avoid fruits. I avoid sweets. And I try to live within the 1300 calories. 100 plus minus is always possible. And I avoid eating outside. I sleep in the dark room and do not get up till my sleep is complete. And you can manage it, because if you sleep early, you can get that 8 hours window in your sleeping time. So if you follow these things and using CGM devices and some dietary regulations, you can, if not end diabetes, you can manage diabetes better. Thank you very much. Diabetes can be managed, and I have managed it, I have shown it. Thank you.